Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman.
And I am your new co-host, Jelani Kelly.
And today we're going to be doing Shrek. So this is kind of a follow-up a little bit to our 3-act structure episode. So Shrek is kind of one of like maybe two movies that I saw it when I was so young that I feel like I've kind of always seen it. Like I literally can't remember the first time that I did, because it's just like, I don't know, it came out when I was like 2, I think. And I, as I said, I don't know when the first time I saw it was, but it's just kind of like ingrained in me somehow, which like, I don't know if that's the case for you, because like, I think you're like 2 years older than me, which because of the time frame, like actually does kind of make a difference.
Yeah.
Did you see it like that young or anything, or?
I probably did. Definitely don't remember the first time seeing it. I definitely don't think I saw it in theaters.
Did you ever read the book for it either?
See, now when you asked this question, I did not know it was. Is it based on a book?
It is incredibly loosely based on a book. So William Steig is the author. He does like a lot of kids' books. I think he's dead now. I think he actually died before the first one came out. There's like the bare minimum from the book that's actually in the movie, because basically the book is like Shrek lives in a swamp. He finds like this witch who tells him he's gonna go. There's like a princess who's even uglier than he is, and they're like destined for each other. And then he finds a donkey that talks, that has like nothing else.
He just talks
of the personality of Donkey from the movie, and like goes and like torches a knight, I think.
Oh wow.
It actually really has nothing that like the movie does. It like really leans into Shrek being like awful, but it like kind of enjoys that sort of. It's like
children's books can be dark, man. Like those grim fairy tales.
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't even know if it's really commenting on fairy tales, but I know he runs into a peasant or something and is like, I forget what he does. He like cooks his chicken with like laser vision or something. What? He has like a couple of weird powers that he doesn't in this movie. Yeah, I think it's been years since I read it, but I know there's something like that. He like makes a peasant faint or something with like his, I don't know, ogre breath or something. But basically, like, the whole myth of, like, what ogres are in the movie is, like, kind of what he does in the book, I think. Yeah, but basically that's all that carries over from the book.
Is that the same book he's reading in the beginning and he tears the page out of?
No, I really don't know what that is. And they use that same device, I think, in the next 3 movies. The book at the beginning has nothing to do with the actual book. Yeah, that framing device has always actually kind of confused me a little bit. Basically, like, the reason I picked this is because I think it's a really good example of, like, something that's a very simple A to B character journey. Like,
it is.
Yeah, and, like, as I was watching it, like, I forgot how short it was. Like, it wastes no time on, like, anything. It's pretty much just, like, Shrek's journey, and that's it. It's like 80 minutes long, I think, which even for a kid's movie is like short. So the first topic I want to get into with this is crafting Shrek as a protagonist, because as I said, it's like there's some really simple stuff that's like really on the surface with this. A lot of times pretty much every movie arguably has like a character arc or a journey or something. But I feel like it's just a lot easier to see with this. So first of all, do you think this is an effective character journey? I do, but I don't want to assume that you do.
Yeah, I do. He has flaws and wants to be alone and stuff, playing into the stereotypes people put on him. By the end, he's flipped those on its head based on, the people he's met and married. An ogre marrying a princess that also happens to be an ogre. It might go deeper than that, but that's just what I thought on the surface level.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit deeper stuff to be dug into, but most of it, like, they honestly kind of talk about, like, the themes and they don't, like, explicitly spell out the character journey, but they come pretty close, I would say. Yeah, like, we talked a little bit in the 3X structure episode about, like, how you want there to be a before and after picture. If you take like the first image we see of Shrek and the last one, they're like about as different as possible. He's living completely alone in his swamp in like the first shot we see of him, and then the last one there's like all the fairy tale creatures and he's riding off on his honeymoon, which is about as different of a contrast as you can expect. Like,
Yeah.
as I was looking through like the character construction of him, again, I'm probably going to keep saying this, it's really simple. Over like the past month, I've been reading this book, Creating Character Arcs by K.M. Weiland, which I feel like is referenced a ton nowadays. Throughout the book, it talks about like the lie your character believes is like the central thing that his character changes about. So I see Shrek's lie that he believes as, I'm better off alone, which he says at a certain point, not super early, but he's kind of implicitly saying it throughout the first half of the movie, I think.
Yeah. I think he explicitly says it after they rescue the princess, when he's like sitting on the edge of the cliff or something.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that moment later.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, because like I think that the timing of that is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So like at the beginning, we kind of see that he's like, I think you mentioned this, he kind of accepts like his stereotype that like everyone in like all the humans see him as like a dangerous ogre, which he's not, but he kind of like lets them think that because it's keeping him safe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's an important distinction that he's not aggressive. You know, like at the beginning, like the people come to him to attack. He's not like actively going out and terrorizing people, which I think is kind of like something that did happen in the original book. Was like that was kind of his thing, was that he did go out and terrorize people. That's something that he very much doesn't do here. Like he wants to be isolated. There's kind of a thing where everyone outside is like stigmatizing him throughout the whole movie, which I think is important. Like the lie that he believes is kind of rooted in a truth, which is that the human world is probably never going to accept him.
Right.
That's consistent throughout, which I think that's important because there's like some kids movies that I feel like would kind of do that, where they end up changing like everyone else's perspective at the same time, and I'm glad they don't do that here. I don't know if it's the greatest comparison, but like Zootopia is kind of a movie that does that, where it's like they flip the stereotypes on like a societal level, which works for that movie. Like I'm not trying to throw shade at it, but I think it wouldn't have come off the same way if they did that here. So I think that's a good choice to not.
Right.
But like on a character level, I think the important thing is that he is embracing this stereotype because it's helpful to him. It's kind of like the Tyrion Lannister quote, "Never forget what you are, because no one else will, and like wear it like armor so that it can't be used to hurt you." Like I think he's kind of embodying that.
Why did Tyrion Lannister say that? I've never watched Game of Thrones, so I wouldn't.
He's a dwarf, which is what he's talking about there, and like that's something he gets super judged for. So like the main other thing that I think is interesting about this is that Shrek actually seems pretty aware of his problem, which is something that I don't know if you don't see it a lot, but
it's normally hidden, right? Like hidden within the character, and like they're not necessarily aware of like their flaw.
Yeah, that's usually the case. And I wouldn't say he's totally aware of it, but he's pretty aware of it. Like we end up seeing later, like after maybe a half hour or so, that like he actually does think about his like the prejudice that's placed on him, all that kind of stuff a lot. It's clearly not coming to the surface for him now. Again, I don't think he's like totally self-aware, at least not to the point that like I don't think he realizes that he doesn't want to be alone, or like he doesn't entertain that as a possibility, so he just shoves it away. But he does seem to be pretty aware of like, I'm not what everyone thinks I am, but they're just going to keep thinking it, so why bother fighting it? So this is something that I think follows pretty classically into 3-act structure. We kind of have talked about this already. So like there's the classic before and after change, and looking at the timing of everything, like in terms of like the exact minute that everything happens, it pretty much is following like standard 3 acts. I would say the inciting incident is when the fairy tale creatures show up in his yard, and that happens at like 12-13 minutes, which according to like almost all metrics is like exactly where you want that to happen.
Yep.
And then the end of Act 1, he's sent off to rescue Fiona, which is 26 minutes in. So given that this is like an 80-minute movie, like that's almost exactly a quarter of the way through, a little bit more. The midpoint, he and Donkey rescue Fiona, 40 minutes, so like exactly the middle.
Yep.
And then when he like overhears Donkey and Fiona and he goes back to his swamp, like that's a little bit of a long sequence, but approximately 65 minutes, so right 3/4 of the way through. And then the climax obviously is at the end. But basically, like, this is about as close to like perfectly following 3 act structure as you can get, and it works.
Yep.
Which is why I wanted to talk about it, because like I think it's a good example of something to follow, where it's like, as long as everything's motivated, it can work. And I would say everything here, not everything, but everything that's important is motivated here.
Can I just add that I cannot stand when somebody overhears something in a movie or TV show and they misinterpret it and then walk away before it's ever further explained as to what the heck they're talking about. Like, if he would have stayed for just a second longer, he would have known that Fiona wasn't talking about him.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Like, I haven't seen a ton of Friends, but I want to say that Friends is a show that does that a lot, or maybe just sitcoms in general do that a lot, where it's like, I think it's supposed to be frustrating as an audience, but it's also frustrating, I think, because we know it's like a little bit contrived.
Yep.
So
we know it's going to end up getting fixed in the end anyway, so why does it happen in the first place?
Yeah, well, in this case, I'm gonna come out a little bit in defense of this particular example. I do agree that it's frustrating, but I think it is a little bit rooted in like their character flaws. Shrek is hearing what he expects to hear in this case. So it's like, it's not just that. I'm not thinking of any other example of what you're talking about, but I think in a lot of cases those are a little bit more like situational. And in this case, it's like directly addressing the thing that Shrek is afraid of the most. And like he spent the whole movie, or not the whole thing, but at least like the last few days kind of realizing that, okay, maybe there are like people out there and who can actually like see him for who he is and not mind that he's an ogre. And now he hears this and it's like dispelling all of that. So I get what you're saying. I agree that it maybe is kind of a weak choice, but it is at least rooted in some kind of character.
True.
So I had a question with this too, because I don't feel like there's a whole lot of choices that Shrek actually makes, but it still kind of works. So why do you think that might be? Because the way I see it, the only choices he really makes are like pretty much in Act 3, like when he chooses to like go back to his swamp, and then later when he goes and rescues Fiona. Aside from that, I don't feel like he has a whole lot of agency.
Didn't he also choose, like, he didn't have to go to Farquaad or whatever, Duloc, to get those creatures out of his home, but I guess based on his character that wouldn't have been much of a choice there. I guess I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah,
like
it's
when he
not.
accepts the quest too.
It is a decision. So, but it is kind of a non-decision. I guess going to see Farquaad isn't like, he could have, I guess, let all the fairy tale creatures stay, but that's a lot to ask of him. Like, I don't really blame him for not wanting to do that. I don't know how to feel about like the decision to go rescue Fiona, because like I do feel like that's kind of a non-choice. Because
it's either do it or die at that point.
Exactly. It's not really a choice. Again, I think it works, so I've never really felt like that's a problem. But maybe it could have been stronger in that sense, because it is kind of, it's not like he's on rails per se, but he's not there because of any choices that he's made. He is kind of being forced into it.
Right.
Going back to the thing we were talking about earlier with that speech you were talking about in the middle. So there's 2 moments that like we really hear him talk about like the stuff that he's been thinking about in terms of like prejudice and like his relationship to like the rest of the world, where like he thinks everyone's going to shut him out. So there's the ogres are like onion speech, which is right after he decides to take the quest.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they rescue Fiona, he's talking to Donkey about like getting back to his swamp and how he's like going to keep everyone out because clearly nobody else wants him around.
Right.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's like any kind of beat in any structure models that dictates when something like this should happen. But it does kind of feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like the timing of both of those moments.
Yes. So what is that moment supposed to be called in a 3-act structure? Like,
well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I don't think there is one. Like, I don't think that's hitting anything that's been prescribed.
mm-hmm.
Maybe someone else can correct us on this. I mean, the ogres are like onion speech is like kind of the central point of the whole movie. Like, for one thing, it's kind of the moment everyone remembers. And for another thing, it's the biggest expression of his character, that ogres have layers. Like, again, it's very on the surface, it's very explicit.
And then it gets even more on the surface when we get to the other scene with the moon.
Right, yeah.
He's just flat out saying, and I think they can get away with this because, you know, it's a kid's movie, but he's very verbal about, well, at that point, he's very verbal about what his feelings are as far as, you know, the prejudice and all of that. Plus, before he even gets in this speech, and I never realized this line before, when Donkey was saying they're just a bunch of little dots in the sky, the stars, and then Shrek says sometimes things are more than they appear. Up until this point of analyzing the film, I've never, like, took that line in before. I've definitely heard it, but I never realized what he was saying at this point. And it's been a while since I've watched Shrek anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a moment where he's like showing a softer side to him without any real like provocation. He's just kind of like chilling, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree that like maybe because it's a kid's movie, it does get away with it a bit. But I would say it's kind of forced out of him a little bit. Like, Donkey's egging him on, basically, in that scene.
Yeah.
And he doesn't... Like,
but that follows his character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works. At the end of the day, I don't mind that it is so on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it maybe isn't quite as like organic as it could be. So I guess this is a good way to segue into the minor characters.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess first we should talk about Donkey. The way I see it, like, his main function, aside from being the comic relief and like the main thing everyone I think initially loved about the movie, he's basically there to like show Shrek that not everyone's going to care that he's an ogre. Like, their meeting scene, we don't know for sure, but I think it's possibly the first time that anyone has like actually bothered to talk to Shrek, at least for a while. Because I mean, just from like their like reactions in that moment, Shrek's like, wait, why is this happening? Like, there's something wrong with you because you're not scared of me.
I think this moment, Donkey following him all the way home and him allowing Donkey to follow him home also shows that it's believable that he could change over the course of the movie, to show that, you know, he's not really all that much of a bad guy. Like, he's not pushing Donkey completely away, like he's insulting him or taking jabs at him or whatever. But
short of physical violence, I would say he's doing like he's employing like all of his defense mechanisms, basically.
And it's not working.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important too, that like he actually does go as far as he's willing to go, and Donkey's still willing to stick around. Like, it kind of proves that like Donkey doesn't care about any of his like ogreness.
I guess it's like his way of providing warnings, like, you're not gonna, I guess, like you said, defense mechanism. Yeah, his way of providing warnings, like, you shouldn't be following me.
Yeah, their meeting scene, I think, is possibly one of the most important ones. It's small, and it's like, it's kind of a one-off scene. It's mostly just Eddie Murphy like monologuing, and like, I don't know, I'm a little bit obsessed with sidekicks, and basically I see Donkey as like a way overeager sidekick. I don't know if he's a good one in a lot of ways. Like, he's what Shrek needs, but like he's basically there to just push all of his buttons, like, and irritate him.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that exactly.
I'd say, like you said, he's like supposed to be a compliment to Shrek. If we didn't have Donkey, it'd just be Shrek, I guess, talking to himself the whole movie, or an over eager sidekick, as opposed to they're like a good contrast, I'd say, because Shrek is trying to be closed off and Donkey's
right. He's like super outgoing.
Like, hey, yeah, what are you about, bro?
I've been writing a movie about sidekicks for the past few months, and I'm not going to keep the scene, but I wrote a scene with Donkey in it as like just kind of a character exercise. I had him like basically say like, yeah, my main tactic is just like annoyance. Is
it all original characters, or you just threw Donkey in there? Or
yeah, I threw him as a one-off because like I won't get into the whole thing with like what I'm writing with it, but basically like my character goes and consults a bunch of like legendary sidekicks from like other stories, and he's like one of them. And I don't think that scene's gonna stay in the movie now, but I did write a scene with that. Of like the 5 characters that I use in that montage, he's probably like the least helpful of them. I don't know what the process was of like writing him in, but I think most of why his character is the way it is because of Eddie Murphy's performance. Like, this might be the most iconic Eddie Murphy character ever.
Probably. Just like Marty is for Chris Rock from Madagascar.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know if I've seen Chris Rock in anything else.
Exactly.
Maybe that's why. He's also a little bit like before my time, I guess.
Yeah.
I think he kind of peaked in the 90s and like, yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say about him? Like any more points with it?
No. I think he when I was a child, he was definitely the most memorable character, probably because he did talk the most, but I found him hilarious when I was a kid, and I still found him pretty funny now. Like, even just the facial expressions he was making it cracked me up to this day, so.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of like those perfect blends between like actor and character. And honestly, like, I feel like they don't, like, there's a lot of celebrity voice talent in animation today, but I feel like none of them really utilize it the same way. Just the way that, like, Donkey moves in accordance with the pacing of, like, how Eddie Murphy acts.
Yep.
I don't feel like I see that much anymore. Like, a little bit probably in, like, Inside Out. I feel like Joy does that with, like, Amy Poehler, but you look at a lot of other stuff, I don't feel like they're using the actor to like their fullest extent.
Well, we'll get into like perfectly casting when we do The Boys, because man, the villain in that perfully cast.
Yeah, I just watched the first episode last night, and like honestly, I was not expecting much, but now I'm like, this is good. Like, it's good.
Yes, I've converted another.
But also on the note of casting, this will transition us into Fiona. The only thing I don't like about her character, honestly, is the casting of Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, is it her voice? I think it was her voice for me.
It's too bad, because like I think Fiona's a really good character that like elevates this movie and the whole series a lot, although she doesn't really have a whole lot to do in the other movies. I don't know who they should have cast instead, but I'm really not a fan of the way Cameron Diaz plays her. But I think her character, like, on all other levels, is really good. I really like that they give her an arc in this, and you can't really see it the first time.
Because she seems stereotypical at first, like, princess type.
Right, but thing. Like, once you get to the end and you look back, you can see the motivation in everything that she does.
True.
Even like some things that seem kind of unreasonable. Like, I hadn't really realized it until I went and did this analysis. I get why, kind of the same way as you do with Shrek, like the world of the story is really informing like how she believes her role in the world is. Like, and we don't get all of that in this one, but in the sequels we end up seeing like she's been fed this idea her whole life that like it has to be this like one certain type of guy that comes and rescues her.
Yeah.
Like, why would she believe anything else? Because like this has just been fed to her forever. Her one goal basically is to have the spell broken. Her arc is basically all about, like, broadening her idea of how that can happen. But I don't blame her for, like, any expectations that she has, because, and again, we don't get into this so much in the first one, but, like, in the second movie, we see, like, that actually the whole thing has been, like, set up between her dad and the fairy godmother. Like, it actually took me a while to figure that out, too, but, like, apparently, like, there's a whole deal between them that's, like, the reason that, and we shouldn't get too into it here, but it's, like, sort of important for her character that this has been fed to her basically from birth. So she's having to get disillusioned from stuff that she's thought probably forever.
I'd argue the second one is just as good as the first. Like, I really enjoyed the second one.
I do too. I think I've seen Shrek 2 more times than any other movie.
Yeah.
I want to say that was like the first movie that we owned on DVD. Or maybe not the first, but one of the first ones. That was at that like time when things were transitioning from VHS to DVD. I know Shrek 1 was out on VHS, but I'm pretty sure 2 was not.
Yeah. That's actually how I watched this movie. I had to get my dad to bring the DVD to me because it wasn't on any of the streaming. I have like 4 streaming services and none of them had Shrek on them, which was just a crime. But
yeah.
I was gonna mention this earlier. What it meant. I didn't know that's the segment we were on, but what it meant for me, because so every Friday night is what my dad, brother, and I would call family night, and we'd watch at least one movie, sit down together, and stop everything. We'd probably normally eat during the movie or something, or eat before the movie, and then like have popcorn or something during watching the movie. But we have a shelf full. We still have a shelf full of DVDs. And Shrek 2 were one of the ones we'd watch over and over plenty of times, with other movies like Spider-Man, the Raimi ones, which is why that holds some sort of nostalgia. Even back then, though, I still did not like Tobey Maguire, because even back then I knew dude did not belong in high school. You know, the Raimi movies, X-Men. I think we had X-Men 2 before any of the other ones. Bunch of old movies. For some reason, my brother would watch, like, you know Van Helsing, the one with Hugh Jackman?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
That's one that my brother would choose, like, every week. We'd also rotate whose turn it was to pick the movie. And that when it was his turn, he would damn near always pick Van Helsing. I'm like, God damn it, why again? Shrek has definitely a nostalgic value for me because I still have it on DVD.
Yeah, I think it's nostalgic for just about everyone. Also, just to round it out, I actually just this week finally saw the second and third Raimi movies.
Really?
And
you've never seen them?
I hadn't, but there's this guy that I've been working with who loves the Raimi trilogy, and he kept talking about it, and I was like, all right, you know what? I made a deal with him. He has to go watch Inception, which he hasn't. But I was like, you know what? Just to be able to... Because I kept making, like, all the points I normally make about the Raimi Spider-Man movies and how they're terrible, but I was like, okay, I think I have to actually watch these to back it up.
That should be an episode we do in the future, 100%. I want to hear you rail on it. I want to hear you rail. We should just do all 3 of them.
All 3 of them at once?
Yep, all 3 at once, and I want to hear you rail on them because the nostalgia goggles for some of these people that watch this movie are too strong. Spider-Man 2, I think, was the greatest of the trilogy. But that's...
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that, but it's still, like, structurally, they're actually pretty... Well, the first 2 are sound. The third one...
No.
I don't know what they were doing with the third one.
No.
Structurally, but, like, Tobey Maguire is...
He ain't it.
He's as bad as Daniel Radcliffe in the Harry Potter movies.
Ooh.
I would say.
Burn.
Okay, actually, no, he's worse than that.
Burn.
He's as bad as Daniel Radcliffe in, like, the first 2 movies when he's 10. And Tobey Maguire's, like, 25 or whatever in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even back then, I made fun of him for looking like a 40-year-old in high school. I was like, dude, what is this guy doing with all of these actual... And I didn't even realize until I was older, what are these, like... older kids, like they were at least over like 20, the crowd of high school students. But those movies, we should definitely, I think we should do. I just want to hear you rant because that'd be freaking hilarious.
Well, it'd be a little bit off brand, but at some point, yeah, I think we should do that.
Yes.
Maybe soon, just because I've seen them so recently.
I have all
anyway,
3 on DVD as well, and I think all 3 are on Netflix.
The third one's on Netflix.
The third one, okay.
I had to spend money on the second one against my will, but I was like, you know what? I just want to be able to win this argument. So, but anyway, back to the Shrek movies.
Yes.
So, did you have anything else you want to say for Fiona? I think I actually have a couple more points, but
not really. Just lay it on me.
So, just like a couple other moments that I think are like pretty important for her. As I said, like all of her actions are motivated, but we don't understand it at first. But I think like what's important for her is her resilience after being rescued. Within maybe like 12 hours, she's kind of turning it around and is like, okay, maybe I can make the best of this. Is trying to be nice to Shrek and Donkey, which is like probably one of the most important moments for Shrek's arc, that after the first impression, someone is willing to get to know him at some level, which I think is, again, we don't know for sure, but it might be the first time that that's ever happened for him. Mm-hmm. It's like a pretty big moment. And then there's the fight with Robin Hood's men, and it's kind of just a fun scene, but then it's a major thing where like he's misinterpreted his first impression of someone, so he's kind of like able to put a mirror to himself and be like, okay, I do this too. Mm-hmm. So like their grace period with each other is like kind of extended, I think.
Don't they only know each other for like 2 days before they get married and say like I love you and all that? Like, talk about moving fast.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot that can be there are probably some holes to be poked in that. It's not nearly as egregious as like some Disney movies.
Oh,
which
God, yeah.
Frozen went off about. It is a fast turnaround.
Yeah. You're like, oh, you're an ogre too? Oh, cool. Let's get married. Like,
yeah, and well, it cuts to the wedding, so we don't know how long it is, but I mean,
oh yeah, between them. No. It was the same day, wasn't it? Because she said, "Why wait? Let's get married today." And Shrek went back to his swamp. What?
Yeah, but that didn't. I don't think their wedding was until like it like cuts to them at the swamp, and we don't know how long later it is. But even so, it is kind of a fast turnaround.
Yeah, it wasn't like months later or anything.
Probably not. I mean, there's really no way to know.
True,
but I think we can assume it wasn't that long. Mm-hmm. Although, again, compared to some other movies with princesses and weddings in them, not that fast of a turnaround by comparison.
Rapunzel.
Which isn't saying much, but it is kind of playing off that trope a little bit. Because that's kind of another thing, is that like this movie was made, I know there's like some honestly kind of bureaucracy behind this movie in terms of like why it does so much with really calling out Disney movies, which I think Disney movies kind of took to heart almost immediately and started like changing their brand a little bit and being a little bit more like self-deprecating. But if you want the actual information on this, look this up, because I'm not super knowledgeable about it. But I know like at some point in the 90s, like the head of Disney got kicked out for some reason, and then he went over to DreamWorks and made Shrek, and I think it was kind of like a middle finger to Disney, like, you guys can be all fun, but look at my guy, like, and he's like making fun of like everything that Disney stands for, and basically like, okay, what is every character? Well, I guess he even went into some characters that like Disney does own, like Cinderella and Snow White. Also, sort of unrelated, but sort of not. I'm going to assume you've seen the new Geico commercials with Pinocchio in it.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure the like high-pitched voice they have him do.
Oh, it's from Shrek. Yep.
I think it's only in Shrek. Yep. I'm pretty sure that wasn't like part of the, I don't know if there's like Pinocchio lore, but like I don't think he's ever shown as like having that voice except in Shrek.
Yep, because he didn't have it in the Disney movie.
He didn't, and like, I think they like, I've seen that as like a elementary school musical, and like it's not part of it that he's all like squeaky, but he is in this, and like now that's kind of, I guess, canon for him, which is like nuts that like this movie that he's in for literally like 20 seconds.
I mean, he's in the
Ends
other
up
ones
becoming-
for longer, but yeah.
Fair, but like it starts off in this one, he's in it for 20 seconds, and now like that's what we remember this character as, not the Disney one. Granted, this one's newer, but like that's still impressive on some level, I think.
Yep. I never actually realized that till you just pointed it out.
It took me a while, but I was like, I guess because like that commercial's been playing so much recently, and then I was doing this, I was like, wait a minute, who said Pinocchio has to talk like this?
Right.
And I was like, I think it's Shrek that said that. I think it's the only one.
Why can't he talk like a Italian mobster?
Oh, that would be fun.
That'd be fun.
Godfather, the Disney live-action reboot, has like some Marlon Brando guy going, I want to be a real one, you know? Something like that. That would be a lot of fun. No way Disney's
That'd
gonna
be
do that.
definitely different from all the other remakes they made, but that's another topic.
Yeah, that's yeah. So the only other real minor character is Farquaad, who I looked into him kind of a lot, but I feel like he's kind of the most inconsistent part of this movie, which is why I didn't like. I mean, I did read into it way deep, but I kind of realized maybe he's a little inconsistent.
Inconsistent how?
Well, not like super inconsistent. I was like wondering a lot about his, I guess most of his like motivations for why he's like imprisoning all of these, or at least rooting out all of these fairy tale creatures. And like him being short, I'm like, is he outsourcing like the otherness or something like that? And like trying to get people to like ignore how short he is or something because like nobody seems to care that he's short aside from, you know, Shrek, but Shrek already has plenty of reasons to hate him.
Yeah.
But like we never see a moment of anyone, like any of his people or his soldiers like laughing at him for being short, which is kind of a route that I think a lot of movies would have taken. I feel like there's a lot of villains they do that with. I'm blanking on examples, but
maybe that's a message to his own prejudice about himself being short and him thinking other people think he's short, even though nobody really sees him like that besides his enemy.
Yeah, and it's not even like, I don't think Shrek ever like says that to his face, but like even in like the later movies, like there's, I don't know if you remember, but there's that scene at the end of the third Shrek movie, which I know people hate on for some reason. Shrek's calling out Prince Charming or whatever. And I'm surprised now that I think of it that there's no moment like that where people like make fun of Farquaad to his face.
Oh, you're talking about when that was, because it's been a while, but that was when the play, right? He was in the castle,
he's like, hey,
or
nice
fighting
leotard. Come in men's sizes.
Yeah.
And like even that, like the couple of jokes they make about Farquaad's height, he's not there for it.
Right, like when she pushes him down in the wedding cake.
Yeah, and that's kind of a fun moment. But again, he's not there for it. So we don't really know his like relationship to that. Again, talking about Tyrion Lannister, there's actually like a moment where because he's a dwarf too, and one of his lines is like, you know, everyone who ever makes a joke about a dwarf thinks that they're the first one to do it. And he actually like calls out almost exactly the same jokes that Shrek and Donkey make about Farquaad. It's like a man of your stature or something, or like no one can ever measure up to you or whatever. Yeah. I'm actually really surprised they didn't do anything with that now. I don't know if it's a good choice. I think it's fine that they don't do that because like it might kind of distract, it might kind of complicate things in terms of like thematically. I don't know. Because I like his main function I think is just to be like anti-fairy tale creatures. So like we know that Shrek will never be accepted, and we know that once he finds out Fiona is an ogre, it's done. Because he's so aggressively against all fairy tale creatures.
It looked like he was ready to, he pulled a knife on her. He was
like,
yo, you about to be locked up for this.
Right, because it's a very political wedding for him.
Right.
Also, I know like the answer to this, but I'm kind of asking this rhetorically, like, why is Fiona the one he picks? She's the only one he has to do any work to get.
Yeah.
It's like Scott Pilgrim choosing to fight all of Ramona's evil exes if he didn't have to. And I get it. It's like a choice for the story, and they do like the thing where like the magic mirror does Tinder before Tinder.
Right.
I think he's a little bit inconsistent on a couple things, but I don't think that's a problem. Like if there's anywhere for this movie to be inconsistent, I think he's the least important one for them to choose.
Right. Did you like Scott? Did you see Scott Pilgrim?
Dude, I love Scott Pilgrim.
Okay, I think we should do an episode on that too.
I think we should too.
I don't like this movie was built up so much for me by all these movie people I watch and all these. It was just built up to an insane amount, and I just don't get it. I don't get it. The stylistic choices and music and acting and characters. Like, I think Chris Evans is probably the most memorable to me. Because
okay, I'm already like disagreeing on so many points. So yes, we should do this. Yeah. The 10th anniversary is this year, so we've got a good excuse to do it.
Yeah.
I think we should mark a calendar for that. Do you have anything else you want to say about Farquaad?
I thought, I didn't realize until just now that I thought he was supposed to be a character parading around as good, like I'm your lord, and you're supposed to look up to me. I'm good to my subjects and all that. But the first scene we see him in is the torture scene with Gingy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh wait, he wasn't supposed to be. You're supposed to know he's bad from the beginning. I don't know why I thought the opposite. Like, you're supposed to think he's good, but he's a surprise bad guy or something like that. But no, that's something Homelander pulls off really well. But like I said, we'll get to the boys. I'm so excited to do that.
Don't spoil it for me. I don't think you did because I saw the end of the first episode, so I know what you're talking about. But
yes,
I still have to get through the rest of it. All right, so that does it for the minor characters. So we've already kind of talked about this a decent amount because it's just so layered in the movie. But the last topic I have is the theme of prejudice. Yeah. So the overriding theme of the movie, and I think it's stated at least twice out loud, is don't judge people before you know them. Mm-hmm. It kind of hits us over the head with that. I don't think, it's a kid's movie. I don't think it's a bad thing. I definitely remembered that part of how I said, like, this has been ingrained in me. Like, I remember, like, the theme of this movie for as long as I can remember. Like, it's just, I've always gotten the point of it, I guess, which I can't really say for most other movies that I saw when I was really little.
Like Spider-Man?
I was actually not that little when I saw Spider-Man. I was, like, 10, so... But that one hit you over the head with it, too.
Can you explain what you meant or elaborate when you said the repeated line, really, really, really?
Yeah, so maybe I'm trying to impose meaning on this retroactively, but this line comes up 3 times. One character will say really, and the other one says really, really. So the first time is when Shrek first meets Donkey, and then the second time is when they're crossing the bridge together at the dragon's castle. And then the third time is at the end, right after Fiona turns into an ogre. And he's like, no, but you are beautiful. And she's like, really? Really, really? Yeah. So I kind of see that as, like, all 3 characters... I guess not really Donkey, because his is very... Like, the time when it comes up for him is very situational. He's just like, I don't want to go over. So it's not really, like, a character flaw thing for him. But for the other 2, they're like, oh, like, you don't mind that I'm an ogre? Like, it's basically both times the context of that, really. And then the other character's like, yeah, I don't. But, like, they need that, like, extra affirmation. Maybe I'm reading way too deep into that. But that was kind of how I read it. Because I wondered about that, because, like, I've noticed that line's repeated. I'm like, normally if a line's repeated and it's not for, like, a callback joke, like in an Edgar Wright movie, like, it's usually thematic. Like, I know one movie that does that a lot is Batman Begins, where it calls back like 3 or 4 different lines, and like it's very much for thematic effect. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. As I said, maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's kind of what I was thinking of with that.
I think that's also another one we should do, because that's another one I don't get the hype behind.
Batman
the
Begins.
Dark Knight trilogy. The whole trilogy. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Oh,
I saw
well, I'm a huge Nolanite, so I might be...
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why I want to do it.
Yeah, those would be good ones to do. Also, I have, like, slight news about Batman Begins that I'll save for the outro. So, like, just a last little point for the theme of prejudice that I want to talk about is, like, I don't know how intentional this is, but it is something that comes up a little bit. Is pretty much every time we meet a character, there's some kind of, like, expectation that gets subverted of it, even if it's really quick. I mean, mostly this comes up with Fiona. At first, she seems like a typical, like, princess, and then after, like, a little bit, we realize she's not. And she's a bigger character, so there's, like, a longer time that we wait for that to happen. But then we also get it with Farquaad. We see, like, him walking, and he looks really intimidating, and then he gets into the room, and we realize, oh, he's, like, 2 feet tall. So it's, like, a little bit of a... It's kind of like first impression, oh, but really they're like this. And then the same...
I think even the fairy tales, like when they first get to the swamp, like the witches are freaking coming in like airplanes, and the mice are annoying him. The big bad wolf is like dressed as like you'd expect the big bad wolf to be like based on the fairy tales. Well, it is,
because like that's his whole point, is that he like... But I you know what, you're right, though, because, like, it is kind of, like, because the point in the fairy tale is that, like, he eats the grandmother and pretends to be her, but, like, here he's just chilling in, like, you know, the grandma outfit. And then they play the joke again at the very beginning of the second one, where he, for some weird reason, goes back to Fiona's castle and is waiting for Prince Charming. He's just like, oh, what are you doing here? Which is, like... I really don't understand. Like, there's no character motivation behind that joke. I think it really works, but it's like, just why? Yeah, so the one other character that I saw that with mostly was the dragon, where it's like, at first it's just, you know, it's a dragon. And then, like, Donkey gets to talking to it and finds out, like, oh, it's like a really lonely dragon, and oh, it's a girl dragon. And... like, there's a bit of an expectation that gets subverted there, where it's like, there's the first impression of the dragon being a dragon, and then we find out that, like, it's actually kind of a horny dragon.
Yeah.
I think that lends itself well. It's pretty subtle. It's kind of the only subtle thing about this movie, but I think it does play into that theme a little bit.
I guess you could say the dragon was in heat.
Yeah, I think we could. Do you have anything else you want to say about this or the sequels? I should have asked this before, but have you seen all 4 of them, actually?
The 4 sequels?
The 3 sequels.
Isn't there... Oh, wait, no. I'm too caught up in the memes. There's only 4 Shrek movies, right?
Yeah, I have heard maybe they're going to do a 5th one, but I have no idea how confirmed that is. That might just be some fan pipe dream, but...
No, because I watch Jack's Films, the YouTuber, and he has, like, a few running jokes in some of his videos, and one of them is, like, Garfield, another one is, like, when is Shrek 5 coming out? And I'm like... based on watching so many of those videos, I'm like, oh, there is a Shrek 5 by now, right? But I just realized there was only 4. The final one, Shrek Forever After. I started to watch some of it, but I think I had to go to work. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? Because, like, Fiona had forgotten who Shrek was or something.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm lost.
I actually just saw that, like, in preparation for this. I was like, I've never seen it. I feel like if there's any time to watch it, it's now. It was free on IMDb TV. It works. It's nothing like the first 2 in terms of, like it's nowhere near that good. But they did okay with it. It kind of rounds things out. I don't think it was necessary, but I was surprised. It was better than I expected it to be. But yeah, I think really the only 2 that, like, really work are 1 and 2. Which, I don't know if that's kind of too bad or whatever, but I know the second one, like, it's a sequel that is just as good. Yeah. I do remember when that came out, because I saw that one in theaters, and I remember everything had Shrek on it leading up to that because it was like that made so much money and like literally I think.
Oh, you mean like marketing wise?
Yeah, like we would go to the grocery store and play I Spy Shrek because he was on everything.
He was. It was like gummy candy and all these sorts of promotional things on other
Go-Gurts.
things. Yeah, Go-Gurts and Pop-Tarts and all. And didn't they even have them in a few it might have been only one, because normally with deals like that, I think it's only one fast food restaurant, but probably.
Oh, he must have been in Happy Meals. There's no way that he wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't remember getting any, but that had to have happened.
Yeah. Wendy's used to have toys. I don't know what happened. Their toys were trash because nobody knew what the heck they actually were, but...
yeah, I was actually just talking to someone about those yesterday, like...
So did Taco Bell.
Dude, I don't even know if they have them anymore, but I remember they had those for, like... I know we got all the ones for... This is the weirdest movie to get it for, but Jungle Book 2. What? I think they came out when, like, we were moving somewhere, and... Because, like, we didn't go to McDonald's a lot, but when we were on the road, like, you... kind of didn't have a choice, so I think we ended up with like all the ones for Jungle Book 2, which it must have just, I don't know what time that was, but it must have been whenever that was coming out.
I had like, I think it was Burger King. Burger King was like the last to go before McDonald's just kind of took it all over.
Are they actually gone, or are we just like not getting them anymore?
I know McDonald's definitely still has them because I saw them in Philly every time I'd stand in line. They always had something current on their thing, but I'm not 100% sure about Burger King. But I had like 2 Dragon Ball Z toys before I completely knew what Dragon Ball Z was. I don't even know why Dragon Ball Z had to deal with Burger King for toys. Like,
I mean, why not?
Sure, but based on the demographic, I think it was on like Adult Swim or something, like something kids couldn't watch, but they made kids toys. It was weird. But I had, like, one of the toys, before I knew actually even who the character was, I just played with them. But then once I learned, like, I'm a huge DBZ head now, but once I learned who it was, I was like, oh, that's who this guy was all along. Yeah, it's just weird. A lot of these fast food restaurants did have, like, Taco Bell, I said, had, like, some sort of... The only thing I remember getting from them was, like, some sort of, like, monster skaters that had magnets in the bottom of their feet, and...
Wow, that must have...
The skateboards had magnets,
that thing
too.
Died fast.
Yeah, I don't even know what they were supposed to be called, but... I mean, I actually love the toys. I never used skateboards because I just used them as action figures, but...
Yeah, it must have been just one of those things that they were hoping would take off, and like...
Yeah, Taco Bell does that a lot.
Wow, so much nostalgia.
I don't even remember any of my Wendy's toys, though, to be honest.
I didn't even know Wendy's had them. As I said, we didn't eat fast food a lot. Do you remember Beyblades, though?
I never had any, but I do remember them. Like, I'd see people battle in school.
The only one of, like, those kinds of toys that... maybe I'm forgetting others, but, like, I remember having those. Yeah. Those were kind of
Yu-Gi-Oh! Too? They banned Yu-Gi-Oh! In my elementary school, because we'd play them.
I don't know if they got banned, but I know everyone had Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon when I was in, like, kindergarten to 3rd grade or whatever. And I never got into it, but I know
none of us knew how to play, so we'd just be like, hey, you can't do that. Well, you don't know, because none of us know the rules.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that point, like, you can barely read, so it's just like, you know.
Yeah. I'd be like, this card looks cool. I don't know what the description says, but I'm going to use this, and I'll make up the description of what it does. I did that with my brother all the time. I'd constantly beat him because I had, like, 2 of the strongest cards in the game. I think we're banned.
Wait, is your brother older or younger than you?
Younger.
Oh, man. Okay.
I would kick his
butt
butt
is
constantly. I feel so bad.
I'm a little bit sorry to get mad at you because, like, my older brother would do that kind of stuff to me all the time.
Yeah.
He still makes up his own rules for stuff.
Yep. There was one card where it would destroy the entire board for Yu-Gi-Oh! But I didn't know that... I didn't even know what discard meant. But you had to discard 5 cards in order to use it. And then
he just pulled out a
blew up the whole
description
field
for discard. Well.
Yep. But anyway, that's...
Yeah. Early 2000s were a lit time.
Pretty freaking lit.
You don't exactly still have to look very far to find other Shrek things.
True.
I wouldn't recommend looking it up, but there's Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life.
No, don't do that. No.
I didn't know what it was, but I'd heard of it, so I looked it up a few nights ago in preparation, just like, okay, this is part of the culture.
No.
Shrek may be love, and he may be life.
No, Evan.
But, not the way that these guys tend to think. It is, like, let's just say it's not safe for work.
No. Oh, it's not safe for life, dude. Oh,
yeah, I'm amazed that my view of Shrek is not completely tarnished by this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he is a pop culture icon to this day. Not always in the best ways, but you know,
memes and quotes and all that.
Yeah. It holds up. Some of the animation is a little dated, but
yes, I was pay attention to that last night. I was like, this could have easily been a really B movie that nobody had ever seen.
Well, I think for the time the animation was awesome because you look at other stuff and like
I'm saying now
DreamWorks' only other movie. Well, I think their only other 3D movie at that time was Ants, which didn't age nearly as well.
Yeah.
And I think the sequels helped too. But like the animation is for 2001, it's really good.
Yeah.
For 2020, it's like some of the movements look a little bit weird.
Yes.
But for the most part, it holds up.
What did you want to say about Batman Begins?
Oh, yeah. Just some boilerplate stuff. So, upcoming episodes, we're going to do one on The Boys, the Amazon series. I just started it.
Let me just say, the way I wanted to watch it was because I saw a compilation of Homelander. I was like, yo, who is this dude? And once I saw that 5-minute video on YouTube, I was like, Mom, do we have Amazon Prime? Because I need to watch this show right now. And I'm pretty sure I binged 6 episodes that night and then finished the next 2 the next day.
Wow.
But yeah, I let's just say I won't be I'll be talking a whole lot for that one.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I like it so far, but I'm only 1 episode in. But I'm excited for more, which I didn't think I would be, but I am.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's going to be our next one. I was planning to do one on Casino Royale, but I don't know about that because I was going to do it before No Time to Die, but now because of the coronavirus, that just got pushed back to November. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that because it was supposed to come out in like April, but anyway, so that might be an upcoming episode.
I've actually never seen a James Bond film in its entirety. I've seen Goldfinger, like the back half of it, but
yeah, I mean, whether we do it or not, definitely go check out Casino Royale. It's so good.
And it's something I can watch without really knowing much about James Bond.
Oh yeah, well that's kind of the hallmark of what James Bond is. They're
great.
I mean, aside from the Daniel Craig ones, they kind of tried to connect those, but all the other ones, it's just kind of like they're all kind of the same movie. That's kind of their appeal. So we might be doing one on that in the near future, but I don't know.
Dark Knight, Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, so all the ones we talked about. I haven't done any preparation for those, but I definitely would like to do those. I have one planned for The Hobbit, just kind of all things The Hobbit. I don't know when that's going to be.
Never seen those either.
Yeah, that one might be a while. In other news, Descended Awakening is releasing soon. What's the exact day?
April 2nd. Get your copy now.
And it's on Amazon, yeah?
Yes, Amazon Kindle. If you just look up Descended Awakening on Amazon, you should be able to find it. It should be at the top. Only $10. Only $10. I think we should do like maybe a little bit of like a mini prep episode or something before it releases, just to build a little bit more hype around it. But we're definitely doing a spoiler look at it after release.
Yeah, spoiler-filled interview of sorts. That'll be coming within the next couple months. We'll try to get it out soon after the release.
Yes.
And then, this isn't as big of news, but I have a column that I'm starting to write for my internship with AfterBuzz TV. So I'm doing a thing where I have 2 movies that are like similar to each other, and I put them head to head and decide which one's better. The first one that just got released, and I'll put a link to this in the notes, is Inception versus The Matrix. You can all guess which one won. I don't think that if anyone who knows me knows which one's going to win that. But I've also written one, they're not released yet, but they will be soon, on Batman Begins versus Casino Royale, and then Endgame versus Days of Future Past.
Oh.
Yeah.
Time travel.
And I am not going to say who won those, but I can tell you that they were both pretty close. So yeah, you can send in comments to intanalysis18@gmail.com, and you can like us on Facebook and leave reviews on iTunes. And as of about 3 hours ago, you can find us on Twitter at intanalysis18. And as of about 2 days ago, you can find me on Twitter at Davos Watson. I don't know if I'm going to keep that username. But
what is that from?
It's Davos Seaworth and John Watson. So Game of Thrones and Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if I'm going to keep that, but it's sufficiently nerdy for me for the moment. So
what was the Twitter? INT?
Analysis 18. Literally, I just made the account like an hour before we started recording. So it probably has no followers at the moment, but by the time I get this out, maybe I'll have spread it around a little bit. I have nothing but a logo and a name on it for the moment, though. But yeah, where can people reach you?
You can find me on Instagram. Feel free to DM me at Base Phoenix. I also stream every night except Fridays now on Twitch at JBasePhoenix because somebody took my thing. But yeah, you can just find me streaming any sort of writing thing. Like I've written 2 short stories so far on stream. I do live readings in character for any character that's in the story. And right now we're editing the 2nd book in the series.
Nice. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it on our on our episode about Shrek and many other extraneous things. But yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye, all.